you. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Ada, and I am an employment coach at the Multicultural Association of Fredericton, and I will be your host for this group session today, which will be on Canadian workplace culture. And once again, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on entering the Canadian workforce. And now it's time to make a big impression on your job. This group session will be beneficial to those who are planning on coming to Canada and are looking for work, or those who are already in Canada and are looking for work, or those who are currently working in Canada. It will be good to understand what it means to be in a Canadian workplace, the culture, and also I will give you some tips on how to successfully adapt in the Canadian workplace. Our group session today is going to be on knowing what the workplace culture is and why it matters, and also understanding the Canadian workplace culture, the values and rules, and also what's expected of you as an employee. And we're going to round it up on 9 tips on how to adapt and succeed. I do have to let you know that if you have any questions, I do ask that you ask them at the end of the presentation. Thank you. So we'll start off with what is a workplace culture. It's basically the character and personality of an organization. It makes a business unique, and it sums up a company's values, traditions, beliefs, interactions, and behaviors and attitudes. Oops, sorry, someone just joined us. And in simple terms, it basically means how things are done around here in a company. So in other words, a workplace culture is the unique style in which members of an organization communicate, behave, and interact. And the Canadian workplace culture is influenced by the underlying beliefs and values of Canada as a whole. That is, the culture in a workplace in Canada is influenced by the culture of Canada as a country. I'll give an example. I'll use global brands as an example. Let's say Apple as an example and McDonald's. These two different companies have different brands. And it's expected that because of the fact that they have different brands, the way that they have their culture will be different in the company. And you should understand that workplace cultures are unique to every different company. So it basically means that every company in Canada will have its own workplace culture. And it's not just important to understand what it is, it's also important to understand why it matters, why you should understand what a workplace culture is. A positive workplace culture is significant because it attracts competitive talent. Companies in Canada are looking to hire the best of the best, and having a good workplace culture will help that. It drives employee engagement and retention, meaning that it drives the way that employees engage with one another, and also it drives the way that they stay in a company. A company's culture is going to influence that. It impacts an employee's happiness and satisfaction. An employee is going to want to stay in a company that has an amazing workplace culture, and one that doesn't have a great culture, an employee will want to leave. And also it affects an organization's overall performance, meaning that it doesn't just affect an employee, it also affects an organization as a whole. Now, to the next step, we are going to understand what a Canadian workplace culture is. And immigrants bring valuable knowledge and skills to the Canadian economy. And many face challenges in starting and advancing their careers in Canada, which is very, very crucial. And most of these challenges occur because newcomers are often unaware of the differences between the work environment in their home countries and in the Canadian workplace culture. In Linda Goldstein's book, You're Hired, Now What? She was able to differentiate between the work values in Canada and in other countries. It's important to understand how the work values in Canada is different from the work values in the home country that you're coming from. And she was able to list a few of those values and compare those values. We'll take a look at some of them. The first one in common Canadian values, which is directness, honesty, and openness in communication. Canadians prefer to be open and honest and say what they think, but they should also be polite and speak in a way that is considerate of other people's feelings. But if you look at another country, for example, an Asian country, their culture likes to save face, which is most important to them. And people are taught to be diplomatic and put the feelings of others first. Honesty isn't necessarily the best policy. And in another example, let's say in an Eastern Europe country, people are even more direct than in Canada. They see directness as a sign of honesty and respect, but can seem rude to people from less direct cultures. I'll take another example, short-term outlook. Companies in Canada like to focus on short-term goals. They like to measure success on a quarter-by-quarter basis. But in another country, companies sacrifice short-term gain for long-term goals. And for example, in Japan, an auto company in Japan would have longer-term goals than a North American auto company. But the good thing is that by learning and understanding the unique Canadian workplace and adapting to it, newcomers can avoid misunderstandings and can put themselves on the road to success. There are different kinds of rules and values you should know about as a newcomer to Canada when compared to your home country. So we are going to look at a few of them and give some examples. The first one is unwritten rules. This means that there are certain values, behaviors, and ways of communicating that are simply accepted and used by everyone in Canadian society. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. The first one, did you know that when you get onto an elevator, everyone should look up at the floor numbers on the screen as they change rather than at each other? I definitely did not know that. When you see a closed door to an office, you should knock on the door before you enter. You're basically asking for permission to enter rather than simply turning the handle and entering. Another one is using your headphones or a headset while on a call in an office space, like I am right now. It's just a sign of respect for your other coworkers. Saying please when asking for a favor or saying thank you when someone holds the door open for you. Knocking before visiting a coworker's room or personal cubicle and asking if they are available. cleaning after yourself in the lunchroom or the break room, and staying away from office gossip. Well, I know that I find that hard to do sometimes. And these unwritten rules are different in every organization. I'll go back to my first example that I stated. For example, McDonald's and Apple, their unwritten rules are different. And by quickly recognizing these policies, you'll settle into the organization quicker by giving yourself a greater opportunity of achieving success at the workplace. Now, I know you're going to ask yourself that, what do I do when I'm unsure of what to do, because these rules are not so obvious. I would tell you to just sit back and observe, take your time, learn, ask questions if you want. And in time, you will understand the unwritten rules in the company that you're working in Canada. Another value is written rules. These are often policies and procedures written on paper by a company or an organization in Canada. For example, rules about sick leave, hiring contracts, and employee benefits. I'll give you an example. When you first are hired in a company in Canada, during the onboarding period, the hiring period, you are given a few documents to sign, such as like the code of conduct or your employee contract. These are basically policies and rules that you are bound by as an employee, and these are policies written by that company. So that can be seen as a written rule. The next one that we'll move on to is the government rules. In Canada, both the Parliament of Canada and the New Brunswick legislature can make labor laws. These are the kinds of rules that are binding or required of everyone and must be followed. For example, here in New Brunswick, we do have the Employment Standard Act. That is an example of a government rule, and it is something that is binding for every employer or employee in New Brunswick, meaning that every employer or employee in New Brunswick are bound by these laws, and everyone must follow it if you are working or providing jobs in this province. The next value that we are going to talk about is time. Time is very important in the Canadian workplace. In Canada, it's considered to be very valuable in many ways. In your workplace, for example, attendance and punctuality are both used to measure an employee's performance. I'll give myself as an example. I have worked at a job here in Canada where my attendance and my punctuality both were used to measure my performance and also my pay. That's to show you how important time is in Canada. Time is seen in different ways in Canada, and it's expressed in different ways. I also know that time is a valuable skill, because it's not just going to affect you as an employee, it's going to affect how you relate with people in the office and how you relate with people outside of the office. For example, if your employer says that you are to be at work by 8 o'clock, you need to know whether you have to be at work 5 minutes before 8 or 8 o'clock exactly, or if you are allowed to be 5 minutes late. It really depends on the company that you're working for and how exactly they see time. And like I mentioned, time is expressed in different ways in Canada, and we are going to take a look at the different common expressions that time is used. Of course, the most popular one is time is money. If you don't use your time to make money, you are basically losing money. Be on time, that is, don't be late. Good timing, do something at the right time. Keep up with the times, which means have current information or anything. Save time, which means do something faster. And don't waste your time, which means don't do something that's not valuable. And the next value we're going to talk about is space. At work, it is important to be professional and to stick to workplace expectations. In Canadian culture, the general rule for physical space between two people is 2 arms length. I have a diagram here that explains how much space you should give a coworker in the office. Intimate space, that's you're giving them a little bit of space. I would advise that the personal space is the best option to go with because you're not too far or you're not too close. You don't want a situation where a coworker says that you're too close to me and starts backing away from you. So it's best to always know like what would be the best amount of space to be next to a coworker so that you're not too far away from them, that they can't hear you, or you're not too close to them that you're invading their intimate space. The next one is body language. To improve your understanding of body language in a Canadian workplace, it is best to be observant and also to be self-aware. Context does matter when you're trying to understand body language, and acceptable body language can change over time. Let's take a look at some examples of the typical body language that you can expect when you are in a Canadian workplace. Nodding your head when you don't understand. In some countries, nodding your head yes would be seen, when you don't understand would be seen as a sign of respect. But in Canada, supervisors and managers want to know when you don't understand. So if you don't understand, you can try repeating what you've heard using your own words. And it's always best to ask questions. So questions are acceptable when you don't understand something in the Canadian workplace. And the next one is the handshake. In Canada, men generally give a fairly firm handshake and women give a medium handshake. A soft handshake may be seen as weak. Eye contact. Usually in Canada, looking someone in the eye or close to their eyes makes them feel that they can trust you. I do know that in some other countries, looking someone in their eyes can be seen as a bit intimidating. Or even a bit disrespectful. But in Canada, it is seen as a good thing. Being quiet. In some countries, being quiet can be seen as a sign of respect. It can also be a way to show that you are listening to others when you're speaking with them. But in Canada, listening is positive. But adding your own ideas and thoughts show that you want to contribute. It's just not enough for you to be quiet and just listen. You're always welcome to say your mind, to give ideas. You're always allowed to give your thoughts on issues or topics, and it's very, very welcomed. The next value is teamwork. In Canada, teamwork is very, very important. The success of a team also means the success of you as an individual. And basically, teamwork makes the dream work. I know that in Canada, there is a priority on you as an individual, but teamwork is very, very important. It's a very, very important value here in Canada. Indirect feedback. Now, this is a value that I've seen a couple of newcomers struggle with. Canadian communication style is usually regarded as direct, But when it comes to feedback, things are a bit different. When Canadians give negative feedback, they tend to wrap it up in a positive way. It can look, I tend to look at this feedback approach like a sandwich. For example, let's say you're having a conversation with your supervisor and they are giving you some feedback on a project you just completed. And they say that the report was very good. It would have been better if you had clarified the main idea, and excellent first attempt. Now, some newcomers might look at that feedback and be like, oh my gosh, I did an amazing job, and focus on just the positive feedback and not the main feedback that was given, which was, it would have been better if you clarified the main idea. So the reason why I said that this is very much like a sandwich is because the positive feedback comes on the top and at the bottom. And then the constructive feedback, which is the feedback that was what you were supposed to focus on, is in the middle. So most times you shouldn't really focus on the delivery of the message. You should more focus on what exactly the feedback was. What exactly am I supposed to learn from what was said? And like I mentioned before, if you don't understand, you should always ask questions. And the next one is being mindful of cultural differences. So when I say being mindful, I mean practicing non-judgmental ways of acknowledging the needs, values, and beliefs of your co-workers. People who live in Canada are from different countries and regions of the world. And when you meet someone for the first time, you really can't know everything about them. And I would like to say that people are like icebergs. So in the diagram, you can see that there are some values that are on the top, and there are some values that are on the bottom. On the top, you see things like art, language, behaviors, dressing, celebrations, foods. When it comes to someone's culture, those are things that are easy for you to see about someone. Those are things that are easy for you to recognize about a person. But when you look on the deeper part of the person, when you see their values, rules, customs, those are things that are a little bit harder to see and will take time for you to see. And that's why it's important for you to know a person as a whole and not just judge them by what you see on the top. That's why we would say that people are like icebergs. And the next value would be equality system. Most Canadian companies operate in a non-top-down system, which is also known as a hierarchy system. And employees must follow their supervisor's directions. The Canadian workplace culture leans towards individualism and equality. It basically means that in a Canadian workplace, being an individual is celebrated, but at the same time, you are seen, everyone is treated the same way. It doesn't matter what position you hold in the company, everyone is seen as the same person. And in the diagram here, it shows the difference between a hierarchy system and an equality system. In other countries, in a hierarchy system, you would keep your views or ideas to yourself. Authority is rarely challenged, and roles are assigned rigidly, meaning that roles cannot be changed. And in an equality system, like here in Canada, you share your own views or ideas that is celebrated. There is a flat organizational culture, meaning that everyone is seen the same way and it doesn't matter what role you hold in the company. And your roles are self-determined, meaning that you are responsible for your own role in the company. And we've basically discussed all the different rules and values that are held in a Canadian workplace. Now it's also important to understand what is expected of you as an employee in a Canadian company. In a Canadian workplace culture, employers expect you to be good at speaking, listening, and socializing with other people, to know the etiquette of working with coworkers, colleagues, and supervisors, to understand a good range of cross-cultural differences in the workplace, to complete your tasks by yourself or independently with little to no supervision, to take initiative, meaning to be proactive, and make decisions on your own based on company policies. Basically, it means that you are expected to know all these things, and you're not expected to know them immediately you're hired in the company, but as time goes on, you are expected to know what it means to work harmoniously with your coworkers and with your supervisors. And also, like I mentioned before, the Canadian workplace celebrates individuals. You need to know what it means to work on your own. But at the same time, you need to know what it means to work within a team. And being proactive, making decisions on your own, these are things that are also expected in the Canadian workplace. Now, it's not just enough for you to understand what a Canadian workplace culture is. It's also important to know how to succeed and adapt in a Canadian workplace. And I'm going to give you 9 simple tips on how to do that. The first one is ask questions. Always ask questions. Being willing to ask questions is an important skill to develop. If you don't know how to do something, ask. You want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can with the best information that you're given. And the only way to do that is for you to ask either your supervisor or your coworkers, or you can even do research too. The second tip is practice communication skills. Being able to speak the language in a workplace is an essential skill to have. This will help you integrate with your coworkers and effectively exchange and discuss ideas. Also, it can increase your chances of moving up the ladder in the workplace and also getting new opportunities at work and outside of work. Number 3, embrace nonverbal communication. By doing these things, you will make your workday more enjoyable and productive. It simply means like simple things like eye contact and saying hello when you're passing someone in the hallway, and saying good morning or goodbye at the end of your workday. It's not just important for you to know what verbal communications, the way you speak with your coworkers. It's also important for you to pick up on those things that are not said. Like I mentioned before, those unwritten rules in the workplace, it's very, very important for you to know how to pick up those little nonverbal cues, and it's going to help make your work or your stay at your workplace a lot more enjoyable. Number 4, grow soft skills. In Canada, your soft skills are a critical part of your career advancement. I've heard that you're basically hired for your technical skills, but you can be fired for your soft skills. These skills can include the ability to work on a team, being flexible and open-minded, having a positive attitude at work, taking initiative, and having good time management. You can see how all these little soft skills are the same as the values that are being held in in a Canadian workplace, how important these values are. And that goes to show how important growing and learning more soft skills are. Don't be afraid to take initiative. It basically means that being proactive is seen as a positive trait in the Canadian workplace. The Canadian workplace places a strong emphasis on the willingness of employees to take initiative in their roles. Basically, it means that you are allowed to be proactive in the role that you are given, making decisions, going over and beyond in your role is very much welcomed. But at the same time, you don't want to do too much, or you don't want to do more than the role that you're giving. So you have to find a very, very good balance between being proactive enough, but not being too proactive. Number 6, understand workplace cultural differences. As mentioned, Canadians have a type of workplace where equality is promoted. This can be quite different from the culture in your home country. For example, managers tend to encourage employers to suggest improvements and take their careers into their own hands. This is crucial to understand because you may work hard, but that may not be equal to a promotion. Number 7, punctuality and attendance. Canadian workplaces have policies around what is acceptable and what is not acceptable when it comes to punctuality and attendance. Like I mentioned before, time is very, very important in the Canadian workplace. And time can be knowing the right time for you to be at work or leave work. Or it can be as simple as knowing how you're supposed to arrange a sick day, or knowing how you should arrange a vacation time off. So by understanding these customs, you can position yourself in a good place to advance in the workplace. And number 8, committing to personal development. One advice I always give for newcomers is that you should never ever stop learning and developing yourself. For example, leadership skills, interpersonal skills, conflict resolution skills, even listening skills will be some of the abilities you will use to grow in a Canadian workplace. Personal development will help you grow the skills that will not help you just adapt in a workplace culture, but also outside of a workplace culture. And it will also help you adapt as a newcomer in settling in Canada. And number 9, networking. Did you know that 80% of all positions that are filled are not being advertised by employers in Canada? It basically means that networking in Canada is crucial both for finding jobs and for career advancement. In finding employment, networking is the way for candidates to approach the hidden job market. It's best for you to be proactive in meeting people and making business connections. I know for a lot of people like myself, networking isn't easy and they find it very, very hard. But just starting with where you are, whether it's networking with a coworker or networking with friends or networking with people in your community or even in church, these are just the little ways that can help you find the next job opportunity or the next opportunity in your community. And it's just taking those little steps that would help you in not just understanding the Canadian workplace, but just creating a career for yourself where you strive in Canada. So I know that I have said a lot when it comes to the values and rules and what's expected of you in Canada. So I am going to play a YouTube video that sort of summarizes everything that I've said so far. And I'm pretty sure it'll be beneficial to everyone in the session.